Welcome back. Today we are diving deep into the world of CSS positioning. This topic is fundamental to creating well-structured and visually appealing layout. By the end of this tutorial, you will have a solid foundation of CSS positioning and you will be able to use properties like top, bottom, left and right and also position to precisely control the placement of elements on your web page. Let's get started. So what is CSS positioning and why is it important? So CSS positioning allows us to precisely control where elements are placed within the layout of our web page. And this is a powerful technique that enables us to manipulate elements in a document and control how they behave. With positioning, we can make elements overlap each other or stay fixed in specific location on the browser screen. This gives you greater flexibility in designing and arranging content on our website or application. By default, HTML elements are arranged in a vertical stacking order from top to bottom. However, we have the flexibility to change this property and position elements outside of the normal flow. And for this, we have this position property. The position property determines how an element is positioned on a web page. And there are 5 different position values that can be used. And these are static, relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. Each value offers unique ways to control the placement of elements within the layout of a web page. And now we are going to cover all of these values one by one. Now the first value is static positioning. The default value is static, which means elements follow the normal document flow. The normal flow of elements follow the order in which we specify them in our code. This means that elements will be displayed on the web page in the same order as they are written in our HTML code. For instance, if we begin by adding a heading followed by a paragraph and then include another heading of H2, the order of these elements on the screen will be as follows. Firstly, the H1 heading will appear followed by the paragraph content. And finally, the H2 heading. Elements with a static position in CSS are not influenced by the top, bottom, left, and right properties. This means that even if you specify values for these properties, they will not cause any visual changes to the element position on the web page. Now after this, we have relative positioning. And the concept of relative positioning is an important one in web design. It is similar to static positioning, but with the added benefits. The CSS position relative property is a fundamental aspect of web design. When applied to an element, it allows for fine-grained control over its positioning within the document flow. Unlike the position static, which is the default position, relative allows us the use of additional positioning properties like top, right, bottom, and left. By manipulating these values, we can shift elements from their default position without affecting the layout of surrounding elements. This property is especially useful for precise alignment, creating overlays, or adjusting the positioning of child element within a parent container. It's an essential tool for achieving pixel-perfect layouts and enhancing the visual appeal and structure of web pages. And now the next one is absolute positioning. The absolute property is a fundamental tool in web design. When an element is set to position absolute, it is removed from the normal document flow, essentially floating above other elements. Its position is then defined relative to its nearest positioned ancestor, often creating the need for a parent element with a position property other than static, such as relative or absolute, to act as a reference point. If there are no ancestors with a non-static position, the absolute position element will use the document body as its reference point. Position absolute is widely used for various design elements like tooltips, pop-up windows or overlays where precise placement is essential. By specifying values for properties like top, right, bottom and left, we can control the exact coordinates of the element on the web page. This property offers great flexibility and is instrumental in crafting visually appealing and interactive web interfaces, making it a must-know for web designer and developers. And now after this, we have fixed positioning. Fixed positioning works just like absolute positioning, but with one significant distinction. While absolute positioning fixes an element relative to its closest position ancestor, fixed position is a game changer when it comes to web design. It allows you to keep an element in a fixed position on the screen, no matter how much users scroll or interact with the content. This ensures the seamless user experience and keeps your important elements front and center at all times. And this property is great for header, footers or fixed navigation bars. Now the last position value is sticky. The CSS position sticky property allows elements to become sticky when they reach a specified scroll position. This innovative positioning option combines the best of both worlds, incorporating elements of relative and fixed positioning. This feature is particularly valuable for crafting user-friendly web interfaces. Elements with position sticky will initially behave like position relative, flowing within the document as usual. However, as users scrolls down the page and the element hits the defined offset, it sticks to a fixed position relative to the nearest scrolling container or the viewport. This is ideal for creating sticky navigation menus, headers, or sidebars that improve navigation and user engagement by remaining visible even as other content scroll. This functionality offers greater flexibility and control over element positioning on web pages. And when we are using position value other than static, one property that we also need to know is the ZIndex. And the ZIndex property is crucial attribute for controlling the stacking order of elements in a web page's layout. It assigns a numerical value to an element, indicating its position in the stacking context. Element with the higher ZIndex value will appear in front of those with lower values. This property is particularly useful when dealing with overlapping elements such as drop-down menus, modal dialog, or layered user interfaces. By adjusting the ZIndex value, we can precisely control which elements are displayed above others, allowing for creative and intuitive design. Please keep in mind that the CSS property ZIndex has the specific requirement for it to work effectively. It can only be applied to elements that are positioned using position absolute or position relative, position fixed, or position sticky. Additionally, it can also be used on flex items, which are elements that are direct children of elements with the display value set to flex. Now, when two positioned elements overlap each other in HTML without a specified ZIndex, the element that appear last in the HTML code will be displayed on top. This means that the order of element in the code determines their stacking order when they overlap. Now the default Z-index value of most HTML element is typically auto. When an element has a Z-index set to auto, it will follow the stacking order defined by document structure. Elements are stacked based on their order in the HTML markup. The normal flow of the document, with later elements appearing on top of earlier elements. However, some elements like positioned element, those with position relative or absolute or fixed, have a default Z-index value of auto as well, but their stacking order can be modified by explicitly setting a Z-index value. If you don't specify a Z-index value for such elements, they will follow the stacking order based on their position in the HTML structure and the order of rendering in the browser. And there you have it. You are well on your way to becoming a CSS Positioning Pro. Remember, practice makes perfect. So experiment with different layouts and stay tuned. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join this exciting web development journey with us. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can put those in the comment section below. Until next time, keep coding and keep creating. I will see you in the next video.